Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life with Sabine Parzer.
Hi, everybody. This is Sabine with another solo podcast. Um, Good Choices, holistic conversations about dance, art, and life. Um, I call this the fourth part of the healing series, and I'm nervous because I would like to share some of my personal story. And I recognize that when I talk about healing, about these beautiful three parts, that I don't want to and I cannot leave out my personal story, especially in times where there is so much information that's coming up about human trafficking, child abuse, really systemical ways of dominating over young bodies. Um, I will not go into detail about all of my story, but I feel like it's important for me to name it, and I have not done that publicly. I have shared my story with friends and with therapists, and actually been very hesitant to talk about it or to write a post somewhere about this because it it's vulnerable. It's sensitive information. I need need and want to protect myself and also my family. Um, and at the same time, with all of that coming out and all of that is being unraveled, um, and also in finding my own voice, in finding my or claiming my own story, I would like to talk about. And the other aspect of it is I think it makes so much sense when I look at my work. And maybe this is also the part that I want to share with you is why I think it's important to hear individual people's stories. So for the longest time, I felt like, why should I talk about what happened to me? I do not want to be in a victim role. I do not want to be pitied, or I do not want to, even be too egocentric about the story. And at the same time, I recognize that stories is what people are needing or are um, what makes information available. Yeah, we can stay in the abstract for a very long time, but when it actually becomes personal, when you know a person, um, and when you know how that person feels or interacts or even moves, it's 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 more tangible. So I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. Um, I have had different kinds of sexual abuse that maybe for the longest time I felt like, oh, it's not so bad. And that sort of kept me from naming it or even looking at it or, yeah, that comparison to other women who have had it way worse is, of course, also something that's sort of inherent into in a victim's story. Without going into detail, there's something called atmospheric abuse or energetic abuse, where even if there is actually quote unquote no actual crossing of physical boundaries, um, being in a sexualized, overtly sexualized environment for a long period of time, especially as a child or as a teenager, is impactful and is abusive. That in combination with insinuating remarks, with an overly sexualized environment, with the danger of something looming, happening, never being quite feeling quite safe. Um, there's another part to my story where I have not a lot of language to because it's a pre-verbal part of my story. So very interesting to me when I look through my work, how much emphasis there is on early developmental movements, on touch qualities, on safety, creating a safe container. When I look at my own story in terms of having somewhere between major neglect and actual physical abuse that happened in a time period of around 1 and 2 years, so very early and in pre-verbal range. Um, it's impactful. It's impactful of how you perceive your environment, how you perceive your body, how you perceive your own, I perceive my own sensuality and sexuality. Um, I'm a child of an alcoholic family system. So that is, of course, sort of in the whole package. Oftentimes, alcoholic families tend to have very unclear boundaries. And when that is combined with overtly sexualized energies or entitlement, um, you have a potent mix, yeah, that leaves a mark on a young, highly sensitive person. And so this is the other element of my story, which I'm figuring out, or I have figured out along the way, and I'm still learning about. I've come to identify myself as a highly sensitive person. I'm learning about neurodivergence as there is more information in the scientific world also that might also border some autistic traits. Um, I I'm definitely have a lot of my somatic skills and my somatic perception tools from that high sensitivity, both around my own body awareness, but also perceiving other people's kinesthetic states or somatic awarenesses, and sort of a super sensitive, uh, um, super sensitive feelers about what maybe somebody else would need or what I might need, which also often leads to overwhelm because there's so much neurological activity around that part. And yeah, I've had to really learn how to ground myself and how to take care of myself, especially in larger crowds or also in situations where I have felt not so contained, which again is one of the reasons why I like to provide relatively safe, or I tend to provide safer environments for people. Um, yeah. So those two elements are a big part of my story. Um, Later on, as a life unfolds, I had children. I was a self-employed person, or I am a self-employed person still, but self-employment coupled with being a single mother for almost 20 years was a very uh, um, high impact in terms of needing to sustain myself, needing to sustain my children, needing to navigate my own uh, trauma responses, protecting my kids, and and finding my way through this with the consequences. And this is the interesting part about this healing journey, the consequences of finding out or learning about my abuse as I went on, because it was not always that clear. I basically not until about 10 years ago did I really know or begin to articulate what happened to me, or was able also through a lot of body therapeutic interventions to stabilize myself in a way that I was able to talk about it. Um, And of course, when you have a story like that, there is a passing on. There is a passing on of your own patterns of picking partners, of yeah, the unresolved trauma passes on through generations, and my children have had a certain impact because of that. I hope to have done my best in helping them regulate and helping them get through their crises. But it's intense. It's intense and it's painful also to watch the next generation going through it. And I feel like in so many ways, um, the recognition of how long does it take, how many generations does it take to get through the abuse. And yeah, one of the greatest gifts of all of these processes is, of course, um, being able to own these stories, being able to talk about these stories, being able to pass on the resources that I have learned throughout the throughout the process, my own therapeutic process, and hopefully my children will have easier access or already have easier access to these resources. So naming these resources, I think, is really important, and this is where I circle back to the work. Is I feel like I've had, again, without even telling the details of it, a tremendously hard time in the last 20 years. And I have to say, and I have to name my privilege within that. So it's always this both and. Yes, I'm a woman, and I've had these abusive situations in my childhood that have definitely formed my body and my energy system and my way of going into relationship. And at the same time, I live in a very rich country with a very good healthcare system, with a very good social service, and a lot of support. A lot of support, interestingly, once I started to really recognize where my trauma was, started falling away, especially within my own family. Without even naming it, they could just feel that I was moving into a sense of empowerment or a sense of owning my boundaries, and that was not necessarily welcome. So a part of the consequence that sometimes happens is when we do come into empowerment or into healing, is that some family members or some friends will actually turn away or against you. And that is some of the hardest impact that that abuse or abusive family systems have. What happened is that I really saw who were my close friends, who were those people who stood by me, who are still standing by me. Um, the therapists that could look through the layers of strategic manipulation or sabotaging different therapeutic processes, and yeah, who had more knowledge than I did, or could read me and hold me. And on top of all of that, it's been dancing. It's been dancing, working with my body, working with the energy system, working with healing touch, self-regulating trauma, self-regulating through expression. So all of the work that I'm offering has been as much healing for me as it might have been healing for other people. And the reason why I do it, and I feel like I can more and more name that, is it's fun. It's awesome. It's joyful. It's incredibly satisfying to see people move and express themselves. But it is as much about my own healing story as it is about other people's healing stories. Yeah. So it's still vulnerable to share this. I don't write that in a post. It feels easier to talk live, and I am going to post this publicly. Um, I would kindly ask for your compassion around naming some of these things, and I will probably not um, react to comments or posts about that. Like, I am going to post it publicly that I'm talking about my private story, but again, there's a lot of details that I'm not mentioning to protect, in order to protect myself and my family. Um, and still, I feel like it is so important to talk about it. Of course, it has a timely quality to it. There's a lot of documents that are that are being publicized, and there's an enormous amount of information that's coming about this horrendous abuse and systemical manipulation. And it's an unbelievable stories, unbelievable part of our history, our patriarchal society of the abuse of children and women and the vulnerable. And um, I don't want to get political about it. I feel like what I can do is I can share my story, I can share my work, but I do want to say that it touches me deeply, and I don't think um, it does not impact anybody. It has a huge impact on anybody who is willing to look at that. It's shadow material. It's a huge collective shadow that's beginning to emerge, and I want to be able to help. I want to be able to share, and I want to pass on the torch of healing. Thank you.
If you would like to know more about holistic dance and the Holistic Dance Institute, please visit us at our website www.holistic-dance.at. Holistic dance is an invitation to transformation through dance, movement, and touch. It was founded by me, Sabine Parzer, in 2010. It is a mix of different methods, a dynamic cross-method approach from dance pedagogical, dance and body therapeutic, systemic and holistic methods. We offer authentic movement, integrative contact improvisation, somatics and applied anatomy, improvisation, ecosomatics, and many more elements. I offer holistic dance workshops, I offer single sessions, I offer teachers trainings, embodiment trainings, advanced teachers tracks, year groups, and retreats. I would be very happy to see you at one of our events. And if you have any questions, please write me an email.